Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. As you can see, we're diving right in because we have lots of stuff to do today. 20 different rooms are waiting for us, so let's go ahead. The first room that we're starting with is the main room in the spring house. So we have all the 4 different seasons, and we'll start with the main rooms, then go to the left room, the back room, the right room, and then the upstairs. The main room is kind of supposed to be like the outside continued on the inside, and I wanted to bring in the kind of enchanted, whimsical element. So for those of you who don't know, I have a 4 seasons island that also has a witchy part, because essentially there is a queen witch who split the island into 4 parts and is trying to restore the balance. And the 4 additional characters that I have, like 1 for each season, are kind of like the witch's apprentice. And so I gave them all like the main room as kind of their power room. Like I gave them like a power source. So you see me kind of put the glowing moss boulder in the center of each of those rooms, and there's always the wooden music box on top of them. There are actually a couple of parallels in all of these rooms that have like the same item, just in like different color customizations, which was a lot of fun to implement. And then for this room also, you can see the cube lights. I've always put like a very fitting pattern on them depending on what room I'm decorating. And I then at some point decided to turn off the overall lights in the room and have just the cube lights kind of light everything up. Now, a little note on the side, I would like to put on like a tiny bit of light with like the DLC options that you get. You know how you can like also put on different like colored lights and soundscapes, and also like some polishing and those things like that. I would really like to do that, but I haven't played through the DLC with all of the additional characters just yet. So this might be something that you can discover in the final tour once the entire island is finished. But let's see what we're currently working on. So now, after finishing the summer room already, we've moved on to fall. Also, there will be a short little overview of all the different rooms that we've created at the very end for some impressions. Like I said, the actual like tour with like the very finished product and like what type of music piece I chose for the wooden music box and all that kind of stuff will be in the final island tour, which I'm super excited for. But this one is the fall room. As you can see, we're using so much red, and then once again a lot of the items that I kind of had already used outside, some weed fields. And then one thing I decided to cut out of these like setups was when I did the ceiling decorations, because that was pretty much always the same setup as the very first room. So I always used a couple of the hanging vines as well as some of the glowing moss in like a few different colors. And here we are already with the winter room. So as you can see, I'm always using like seasonal wallpapers for these rooms. And then once again, we have the glowing moss boulder and the cube lights. This time I customized them so they kind of looked like ice cubes, which I think is super fun. Speaking of the codes, if you are looking for any type of code that I'm using in this video, I will link my card down below where I actually note them all down sorted by island. I also would like to say thank you to my friends who've helped me get the items for these builds. You might notice that I am doing this in pretty much a smooth type of way, which is very not typical for me, which is basically because I planned these rooms, like I pre-planned these rooms using the sketch app that you get from the DLC, because you have like a very big catalog to try around with. And then I ended up like needing a whole lot of items. I will hold that thought as I tell you that we've now moved on to the room on the left, which will actually be the kitchen in each of the rooms. And you will see this type of setup in all the different rooms. So we will have the counters and the pillars, and then like the ceiling shelves. And then now I'm just spreading around a bunch of like bar stools and like, you know, opportunities for you to sit down, and lots of food. Of course, there needs to be a ton of food, always color coordinated in the different seasons kind of. And I always try to find like matching wallpapers and all of that too. But yeah, having like a huge catalog to decorate with and to just get any type of customization that you want results in you ending up like using, I don't know, 70% of items that you didn't have in your storage. And so for 20 different rooms and 4 houses, that was a lot of items. I wish I had counted them because I feel like the number would have been very impressive. But yeah, it's not a secret that I struggle to get those myself. So thank you to everyone who helped me get some items. I'm super happy like having done this, even though it was a ton of work. We're now moving on to the summer kitchen. The summer stuff was always a little interesting, or generally I have to say, like most of these, I feel like we're out of my comfort zone. Like for anybody who knows me, they know that like pink is not my favorite color, whereas like the spring rooms were always definitely a hassle for me. Although I did end up liking the way that they turned out, it just wasn't like the things I would have naturally gone for. Summer was always, I don't know, it's so colorful and there's so much going on that every single time I started decorating, I thought it was going to be an absolute mess. And it was definitely one of those like trust the process kind of builds, because I always liked the way that it turned out, like because it always like brings across a very tropical vibe that they're supposed to bring across, you know. But I don't know, at the start I was always like, oh my god, is this going to work out? I am not sure. As for the fall decorations, I have to say this is probably what came to me most naturally. However, if I had been the one decorating this, I would have used a lot more green. Like I think my personal aesthetic would probably be something like a fall aesthetic, but like with lots of green, you know, lots of plants, basically the Plancore Island, something like a cottagecore plus plants. But yeah, but that was exactly what was so fun about this. I had like such a clear color scheme in my head, and then trying to find like different wallpapers and like different customizations. What type of items could I use that I can use in all the rooms, but just customized differently, you know? All of that was so much fun. And like I said, so in spring it was the pink, in summer it was just the general, like how colorful and almost messy everything was. Fall was a little bit of a struggle just because here and there I really was craving a few other colors. And then winter, I mean, you kind of see the kitchen here. I think the main room was still like a bit of a different style because it was more like natural. But the winter rooms are all very almost minimalistic compared to my usual like clutter decorating that I do. They're almost minimalistic and like with very like posh and clean items. And that was definitely interesting. But like I said, lots and lots of fun. I'd love to know what type of room would you want to create at some point that is kind of out of your comfort zone, or like what type of island maybe. Like I always knew that at some point I would love to create some pink stuff just because I really don't like that color. So I feel like it's like a nice little challenge. And then as for island, I have always wanted to create a city core island. But yeah, let me know down below. That would be super interesting. We have now moved on to the room in the back, and this one is supposed to be kind of like a hobby room for each of the characters. In my mind, I've kind of made up some characteristics and like things that they would like and dislike and things that they would do. And so for the spring character, I decided to do a crafts room. So I wanted to especially use those paint cans, or, you know, like a couple of the clay items, something like that. I ended up also using a bunch of like teddy bears because it's super cute. And then as I was struggling with wall decorations, I discovered the glow in the dark sticker. Glow in the dark sticker, I think that's what they're called. I have been, oh my god, I'm so late to these. I absolutely don't understand them either. I feel like I'm not using them in the way that everyone else is. But I had a lot of fun with this room. Just everything's super playful and colorful and, you know, very like messy because it's a crafts room and it needs to be messy. And even though it's not my color scheme, it makes me very happy. As for the summer room, I didn't really know what type of hobby they would have. Like it wasn't as clear of a like idea for me as the spring room was. But I actually then thought of just a bunch of like, you know, tropical kind of summer-y items, and it ended up being something like a almost storage room for things that you would maybe take to the beach. You know, we have like a bunch of like the bottle crates, we have some beach balls, inflatable bird ring, you know, there's a camera for you to take pictures. Of course, we need a good drink, some shells, you know, lots of colorful rugs, of course, a few different like bed options. I also decided that this person is apparently very sporty because there's like a bike and a kick scooter and like skateboards and all of those types of things. And then it ended up being very colorful once again. For fall, I wanted to make something with, I don't know, I guess barrels and pie. I think that those were probably my inspiration, and Thanksgiving in general. So with the fall character, with all those warm colors, I really just saw something with food. And I was struggling a bit at first because I thought, you know, I already have like a kitchen that I want to create. And so how would I make this any different to a kitchen? But I really like the way it turned out. So what I ended up doing was I just used an oven, and this is kind of like a bakery, like a hobby bakery. I put a bunch of like boxes and stuff in the back right corner, and I'll be using the horizontal split curtains, I think they're called, to kind of separate that, so that that's kind of like the storage area. And then we have like a nice little table in the front, and then there's like the station for you to bake, and all the colors are so cozy. And this is just a room where I would really think of this. I think that this just smells heavenly. Like I'd love to be in this room, also because of the food, not just because of smelling it, but obviously also eating it. And then it was time for the winter room, and this is a little interesting. Also definitely not something I would usually build. I thought of what type of hobby they'd have, and I ended up creating like a museum, I think. So yeah, like just a bunch of like museum things, very general, like cold lights and paintings, and very like minimalistic, and yeah, not really the room that you'd love to spend time in and read and just, you know, smell the cakes, but I feel like it fits. The room to the right, I wanted to create a like walk-in closet. I got this idea when I was kind of trying to figure out some possible like outfits for the additional characters, because obviously they all like walk around in the DA and stuff. And as I was figuring it out, I chose one outfit for each of them, but I actually had so many other options. Like I had so many clothing pieces that I just couldn't use, and I was kind of sad about it. So I was like, okay, why not make a room where I just put up like a bunch of those clothing pieces, you know? And then with the addition of like the partition walls, it gave me like the perfect moment to make like an area for getting ready, you know, for putting on makeup or something like that, and also another area for just having like your clothes up, or like shoe boxes and that kind of stuff. And once again, in this one, there's also a couple of things that I'm using in all 4 of the rooms, but in like different customizations, you know, so like that like dresser in the back, both of that like clothing racks. I'm always trying to have like almost the same layout with the clothing pieces, just obviously very, very different clothing pieces. And then obviously the partition walls, the wallpapers. So like the entire setup for these rooms is pretty much the same, but I decided to go for very different color schemes once again, which was a lot of fun. I also always spread around a bunch of shoes and then some socks, at least for like the, you know, characters where I could imagine it, because I always feel like that gives it that last finishing touch, and like it kind of looks a little bit more lived in and cozy. Moving on to summer, of course, you can already see the colors come into play. Green was always a big part. You know, it is like a jungle part, and the outside does have like lots of coconut trees and bamboo trees, and then just like colorful flowers, like pops of color. So I kind of wanted to bring that across as well. And it was kind of nice because every single time I was able to use customizations I never really thought about before, or like also mix and match different patterns, which usually I'm like I'm not a fan of it. Like IRL, you won't ever see me find like mixing different patterns in like the clothing that I wear or something. But like, you know, it's Animal Crossing. Why not do it? It's fun. It's really fun. And figuring out some different rugs, you know, to break everything apart, adding the shoes, and then also moving on to the dresses once again. It's pretty much impossible for me to pick like a favorite room out of every one that I've created in this entire setup. I do really like the bedrooms, I have to say, which I will come to last. But I think that the walk-in closets are probably very high up on the list, or just like generally, I have to say, picking out the clothing items. I really like that one. I also really like the, you know, the crafts room that I did for like the spring part, because it was just like all the stuff that I wanted to put in there, I was able to put in there and be like, yeah, it's a crafts room. It can be totally messy, you know, that's absolutely fine. And by now we've moved on to the same type of room for the fall character, and there is, as you can see, lots and lots of brown in play now. Brown and red, you know, some different chairs in the same place where there was a chair before, and then once again we're filling the shelves with a few miscellaneous items. I also used the makeup pouch for each of the rooms. I really like the way that the item looks. I think it's super cute. I was like on the fence about it for the winter room because it's a little bit messy, you know, but I decided to use it in just different customizations, and I think it's kind of a nice touch. One thing I definitely struggled with, but that I can also tell you that it really does have a lot of impact, is different wallpapers and flooring. Like also making use of like the accent wall, for example, it really changes the entire vibe of these rooms. I also ended up, you know, changing after the entire room was done and I was pretty much set on a wallpaper. I just switched them around sometimes to kind of try a few things, and it always completely changed everything. So it's one of the recommendations probably is to figure out the type of kind of color scheme or vibe that you want for a room by picking the wallpapers pretty early on in the process, because it allows you to kind of work a little bit better with all of it. Same thing, of course, we're doing for the winter section. My main colors for this were always white and blue, as you can see. Now for winter, I sometimes, you saw that in the kitchen already, but also now, sometimes there are a few colors I wouldn't usually go for like the winter, like this brown here, but there are just not any other customizations. And I do think that in the end, everything is kind of coming together and still creating kind of the color scheme that I wanted. We're obviously going for much more of a clean look here, you know, with the fancy violin. We got some stacked clothing in like a couple of places, some books, you know, and everything is just very calm and minimalistic. And also here we're spreading around a couple of clothing pieces. I did think about putting these like in a very straight line in the winter room, but then I don't know. I guess the aesthetic just kind of won. And with that, it is now time to move on to the bedroom. I decided to create this one upstairs because I wanted to make like a living room and a bedroom, and I was struggling with like where I would make those. And so I decided to go for the big room and split them with the partition walls. So we'll always have like a small bedroom on the left-hand side and then like a bigger living room on the right-hand side. I had already pictured in my head, I started with the spring one, but I had already pictured in my head that for the winter one, I would want like a big TV on the wall, just very minimalistic, framed by maybe a type of plant or something. And then as I was creating the spring room, I was suddenly like, okay, I don't think that there should be a TV in here. And you know, as I was spreading around like a couple of toys and plushies and lots of food, because I feel like the spring character would be a, you know, a very like a clumsy, like very crafty, snackish person. You know, that's kind of the idea that I had in my mind. And as I was spreading around these items, I was like, it just doesn't really fit. And so I introduced like the piano and the harp, because I was like, okay, maybe they just like some very calm music. And then I was thinking about music, and just in a little bit you will see me add a lot of friends to this room. And every time I come in here, which is not often to be fair, because it's not like my main room, but every time I come in here, this room makes me so happy, because it's literally happy. It's filled with all of these amazing colors I usually wouldn't go for, but that just really work well together. I mean, there's no denying that like pastel colors really come together in a nice, you know, in a nice form. But you will see as I switch on over to this other wall in just a second, what makes this room so happy. Yep, it's gyroids. I decided to spread them all over the wall and make this like the main entertainment. So like in every one of these bedrooms and living rooms, there's like a main source of entertainment. In the spring room, I decided that it was going to be like the gyroids and some calm music. And then I decided to go for some other things in the other rooms. Time to move on to summer. And once again, lots of color is waiting for us. Some of these items were an absolute must. Like sometimes the type of sofa that I was going to use was absolutely clear in my mind. I knew that with like the type of person that I thought of when I thought of the spring character, the sloppy sofa was like the only choice really. And then, you know, for the summer room, it was this like Moroccan one, as well as a few more of the Moroccan items. And then some bamboo items. I had this idea of putting the bamboo partitions against the back, which I feel like works really well with the wallpaper, you know, creating kind of like a separate color and breaking up that very solid green. Like I said, we do want a lot of green, but we do have to kind of be careful that it's not completely just green. One item in these rooms that you can find in all four is the lilies. I was decorating with them once, and then I just checked out the customizations and noticed there was pretty much like a perfect one for each season. So for the spring one, we used the pink ones, of course. Here in summer, I decided to go for the very vibrant red. In fall, I'll be using some orange ones. And then in winter, I will be going for the white one, of course. And once again, we were spreading a couple of cool things around, and now moving on to the wall decorations, I was able to finally use these fish models. I don't think I've ever used them before. And then I decided the main like source of entertainment in this room is going to kind of be the like some KK merch, you know, just some good music pretty much. And with that, we're moving on to the fall kind of living and bedroom. And with this one, I have to say I was able to use a couple of items that I naturally would gravitate towards too, you know, like the patchwork bed. I've been wanting to use that in a room forever, and I've never been able to. I have to admit at this point, I only speed ran the DLC. I'm pretty sure I could have used it in one of the DLC homes, but I built like maybe 3 or 4 real ones, and then I speed ran the rest because I wanted the, you know, I wanted the reactions and everything. And I never went back. I will at some point, I definitely will, but I think that I've just been too excited about my own island themes, and so these interior rooms were a big challenge because admittedly I had never used the partition walls or the pillars or like the glow in the dark stickers or anything like that before, but they were also a lot of fun because I haven't really worked on any interiors. I would usually say about myself that they're not really my strong suit, but I do like the way that they turned out, so maybe just practice makes perfect, I guess. The main source of quote-unquote entertainment in the fall room, I decided was going to be any type of books or like education. I was just thinking of books. Books and food, I think, was what I kind of tied to the fall character. And I was also trying to implement like the bookshelves at some point in this room, I remember, but it was just like, I don't know. In interior decorating, I feel like because you can circle around in a 360 type of way, the back wall of like the library shelves or bookshelves is always a little awkward. So I decided to go just for some regular stack books and stuff like that. And here we are now, the winter bed and living room, which is room 20 out of 20. That's incredible. With this one, once again, we're going for white and blue. You know, I was struggling a bit finding a bed because I wanted it to be a little bit more modern than the one that I ended up picking. But the color customizations, like the color options that existed, I just felt like this was kind of the perfect one. I decided to put in the decayed tree in this room because I was like, you know, the winter character would definitely do something like that. And then here you can kind of see me frame the TV that I'll put on the wall right now. And at this point, I would now say thank you so much for watching, and make sure to stay till the end of the video to see all of the rooms and an overview. I hope that this was somewhat inspiring to you. Definitely let me know down below which of these rooms was your favorite. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. And I hope you have an awesome time until I see you in the next video.